Law enforcement officers are trained to observe, identify, and stay calm under pressure. They know wildlife, they know people, they know threats. So, what happens when an officer encounters something that doesn't fit any category? Tonight, we're examining real Bigfoot encounters reported by law enforcement, trained observers who had nothing to gain and everything to lose by speaking up. I'm Matt, and this is Deep Woods Paranormal. This is part one of our Bigfoot law enforcement series. All right, tonight we're going to talk about 5 Bigfoot sightings by actual law enforcement. Number 1, a deputy sheriff encounter. Number 2, a police officer highway sighting. Number 3, Oregon State Trooper traffic stop. Number 4, deputy sheriff encounter. And number 5, a police dispatch call. All right, so let's talk about these locations. The first one actually happened in Washington State. So let's talk about that. But Washington has a long history of Bigfoot-related activity involving the sheriff's office, ranging from historical footprint discoveries to modern-day search and rescue missions. So let's talk about, there's like several encounters in this location. So let's just talk about some of the most famous ones. We're going to continue on with our witness encounters. The other day we talked about a lot of witness encounters, and one of them was being law enforcement, park rangers, and wildlife officials, military. We're going to get into all of that in the next 2 podcasts. But these are more detailed versions of what happened. You guys can take this with a grain of salt if you want, or you can believe it. Law enforcement are some of the most highly trained in military. All these people, they're professional witnesses, essentially, like I talked about the other day. And their job is basically to observe and witness what's going on. And so that's what they basically do. And so this is Sheriff Bill Klausner. This happened in 1969. It says in September of 1969, Sheriff Bill Klausner investigated a logging operation 5 miles north of Stevenson, where he discovered and photographed 2 distinct tracks. He later produced a 15.5-inch long cast of a Bigfoot footprint from that site. That's crazy. So there's a sheriff that actually encouraged. There's a sheriff that was able to find footprints after some kind of encounter. So legal protection in the 1969 through 1984, prompted by a surge of sightings during the late 1960s, county officials passed an ordinance in 1969 amended in 1984 that established the county as a Sasquatch refuge. The law makes it a crime to slay a Bigfoot, punishable by $1,000 fine and up to a year in jail. So that's interesting. So let's look at some more recent law enforcement encounters. This is 2024 through 2025. So the SCSO continues to deal with Sasquatch-related calls and incidents in the Gifford-Pitchknot National Forest. So if you're in Washington and you've had an encounter with one of these things, or you've had a sighting or whatever, I'd love to talk to you about it. I know Washington and Oregon are 2 of the biggest places to see a possible Bigfoot. So this was on December 24th on Christmas Day, and they initiated a 3-day search for 2 men from Portland who failed to return from a Sasquatch search. Interesting. So they were Bigfoot researchers. Sheriff's deputies and over 60 volunteers located the men's bodies near Willard, Washington. Their deaths were attributed to exposure and lack of preparedness in harsh winter conditions. So the Bigfoot didn't kill them. So everybody out there going, oh, it's Bigfoot, it was Bigfoot. Nope. These guys were just unprepared. And they basically just didn't bring enough supplies and just weren't ready for what they were doing. That's why it's so important when you go out to these locations that you prepare for basically everything. Don't just leave a pack. Don't just take a day pack if you're going to spend the night. and make sure you know where you're going, know how to get back. Make sure you have cell phone service if you don't know the area. I mean, we can talk about all kinds of safety stuff on another podcast, but again, you got to be really careful when you go out to these locations. Here's another incident, June 2025. The sheriff's office investigated the disappearance of a hunter near Muddy River. The reports initially linked to the case to Bigfoot hunting, though officials ultimately focused on tracking the missing person in the rugged terrain. So this guy just disappeared. They don't know what happened to him. He was out hunting Bigfoots, literally hunting Bigfoots with a gun. Um, Here's another sheriff's office leadership, 2026. They say as of January 26th, the office is led by blah, blah, blah. He who prioritizes formalizing the volunteer corps used in these frequent wilderness search and rescue operations. Okay, so that's not much more about it. But Washington State, I mean, that's a great place to go out and see Bigfoots. Let me go back here for a second. The one I was talking about, the deputy sheriff, he basically had a sighting of a massive upright figure crossing a rural road. He estimated it to be 7 to 8 feet tall with broad shoulders, no visible neck. He said the movement was basically calm and deliberate. So that's a very good, um, you know, witness sighting right there. That was Bill Walsner, excuse me. So basically, he was the one investigating, the 15-inch footprints. All right, so let's go on to the next one. So, police officer highway sighting in Pennsylvania. The figure crossed under the headlights. What? Figure crossed under headlights? I don't think that's right. Long arms swinging below the waist. I'm guessing that was supposed to say figure crossed through headlights. Smooth, human-like stride. And the officer described shock, not fear. So let's take a second look at that. All right, so on Interstate 80 and the highway crossing, a highway publicized sighting occurred on October 4th, 2025, approximately 5:30 p.m. Mile marker 169 on Interstate 80 in Century County. So the primary witness, was a retired Air Force veteran and civil engineer who was traveling about 150 yards behind another vehicle. It said a dark, human-like figure over 7 feet tall reportedly crossed on all four lanes in the highway in roughly 3 seconds. That's fast. That's moving. Nearly struck by the lead car. And the description says the figure was described as tall, slender, and moving with a smooth glide gait rather than a run. So basically, it wasn't running, it was just walking. Two additional witnesses, including a hunter with 50 years of experience, also reported seeing an unusual figure in the same area that day. Interesting. So here's a former police officer in February 2023. He reported finding unusual tracks in the deep wilds near Indiana, Pennsylvania, about 50 miles northeast of Pittsburgh. He said the evidence was discovered during he found large footprints with a stride of nearly 4 feet behind them in a field near a group of deer. So it's probably out there hunting. Interesting. So the analysis of this, the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, or the BFRO, investigated the report and deemed it to be sincere and credible, noting that the tracks were similar to those documented in Washington State in 2020. Interesting. All right, so let's move on to the next one. So number 3, the Oregon State Troopers traffic stop in the late 1990s. It says the trooper noticed a massive figure at the forest edge, briefly illuminated by the patrol lights. Estimated weight was over 400 pounds. He reported there was no aggressive behavior with it. So let's look into this a little deeper here. It says Sergeant Ton Neese, sighting of 1993, while on military maneuvers with the National Guard in the Oregon Cascades reported seeing three Sasquatch-like figures moving across a hillside. This is a different report. This is one of the most credible reports due to Ness's background and had been featured on numerous programs like Finding Bigfoot. So I was looking for the officer's report, but I don't see it on here. So here's another one for you. U.S. Forest Service sighting in 1990s through 2000s. A record of a U.S. Forest Service enforcement officer reporting a dust sighting of a 7.5 to 8 foot tall figure jogging with smooth movement near a beach in Oregon. Interesting. So here's another one for you, also in Washington State. 911 calls in the 1990s. Although in Washington, these famous recordings often surface in discussion of Pacific Northwest police encounters from that decade. They involved a homeowner calling dispatch to report large hairy creature in their yard. So I guess this is very common. All right. So number 4, sheriff's deputies encounter in Texas, where I live. 2 deputies respond to a trespassing call. The large figure was watching them from the tree line, which is very common with Bigfoots. They saw eye shine, and it made no sound when it retreated. Very interesting. Okay, so let's look into a Bigfoot deputy's sheriff's encounter here in Texas. There's been numerous accounts according to this. So let's just start with this first one. It says Delta County Deputy Incident. Syria, 1990. A deputy from the Delta County Sheriff's Department reported a series of events near the town of Horton. He witnessed a very tall, hairy creature lifting a 400-pound boar hog over a fence at a friend's barn. When the friend fired a rifle at it, the creature dropped the hog and fled. The department later found large human-like footprints at the scene. Very interesting. So again, here's another location that we actually go to quite a bit. Sam Houston National Forest in 1996. A police officer riding an ATV in San Jacinto County, which is another place we frequent, reported seeing a humanoid creature roughly 6 to 6.5 feet tall and had a broad shoulders and was covered with thick, dark hair. And the creature ran upright into the dense forest, leaving behind trembling branches and bushes. So basically, it just ran into the bush. All right, here's 2 more for you. Matt Parrish account. This is from 2025. The former Texas law enforcement officer, Matt Parrish, shared details of encounters that eventually led him to move to Washington's Olympic Peninsula, which is a Bigfoot hotspot. He described experiencing eerie whistles, massive footprints, and a face-to-face encounter with red glowing eyes. And these are all possible signs of Bigfoot activity. Okay, and last one, Texas Bigfoot Research Center, blah, blah, blah. Okay, never mind. That's not an actual sighting. So let's move on to the last one, and then we're going to wrap this up. So the police dispatch call in rural Ohio. Ohio is a Bigfoot hotspot area too. So the officer responding to a large animal report. It was tall, dark, and standing near a fence line. Basically, the homeowner presented a second witness, and it said the silently disappeared into the woods. So let's look at some more. Okay, so while there isn't one single definitive Bigfoot police call for all rural Ohio, there are several famous reports of recordings frequently cited by researchers and the media. So basically what it's saying is they couldn't find anything for the police, but I will read, there's 4 more reports here. The Don't Shoot Bigfoot Dispatch. It says on January 7th, 2026, details emerged regarding a sheriff identified as Sheriff Hen, who reported shouting over the dispatch radio, "Don't shoot Bigfoot," to a deputy or witness to prevent them from firing what may have been a person in a suit. Ooh. So we have a fake We should do a whole podcast on people that fake things. I'm pretty sure we have, but we should do that again. The Ohio How, Columbia, Columbian Coffee, I'm sorry, Columbian County, 1994. While not a 911 call, this is the most famous audio evidence from rural Ohio. This was recorded near the Ohio River by Matt Moneymaker. It captures three long moaning howls. It was analyzed by wildlife experts and remains a staple of Bigfoot research. So essentially, what they're saying is basically Matt's calls that he captured on audio have never been able to be debunked, and it's been looked over by several professional, you know, Bigfoot researchers. I can tell the difference between this call and that call. All right. So recently validated photos. Stone Lake 2022 on April 22nd. I'm sorry, April 2022. A sheriff's department in Ohio reportedly validated photos of a sighting at Stone Lake, leading to a deployment of researchers in the area. Interesting. So, Howland vocalizations in 2024 and 2025. Recent reports from Howland, Ohio include recording of menacing growls and vocalizations described by witnesses as Bigfoot. Oh, cool. Okay, well, sorry guys, those weren't all police reports, but this first one I told you about in the police dispatch call in rural Ohio was. That's why you got to be so careful. I always preach safety first, guys, because if you go into these locations and you're trying to fake evidence, or you're going into somebody's yard to try and scare them, or you're wearing a suit or whatever, or doing a road crossing or whatever, it's extremely dangerous. Um, so you just basically got to be really careful. So to wrap this up, these officers weren't chasing legends. They weren't answering calls. They were answering calls, patrolling roads, and doing their jobs. And in each case, something stepped into their world that they didn't belong. In part two, we'll continue encounters involving game wardens, military police, border agents, and retired police officers. My name is Matt Harvey, and this is Deep Woods Paranormal. We are making the paranormal normal, and I will catch you guys on the next one.